remember, before we get on to the, your heat topic, the DeLorean was not nuclear. It was, in fact, electric. He just needed a nuclear reaction to generate he said it wrong. It was 1.21 gigawatts. He said gigawatts, right?
Right. It's gigawatts, yes.
But yeah. It was in a sense, it was an electric time traveler, right?
One key component needed for that to happen: the flux capacitor.
Right.
So just remember that.
So
now,
this definitely.
There's a big demand on flux capacitors right now too. So, and we'll get into that a little later.
In a minute. Yep. But this definitely makes the argument that internal combustion engines are not dead. That they are not dead. There's still development to be done. There are still frontiers that we can explore with the internal combustion engine, and people are doing that. Someone else that's doing it, in a reference back to Jay's hot flash that he had just a minute ago, is Nissan. So Jay, what's the latest out of Nissan on this?
So, again, hats off to Nissan. They're not they came in with this whole slowly walking into the room, and now all of a sudden they're the hot girl in the room. And they're doing a lot of different things, and we were kind of wondering what the heck is going on, but they have made an announcement that they are working on an engine that is it's achieving 50% thermal efficiency. And what does that mean for our industry? It could prolong the life of the internal combustion engine, which that's a big argument right now. Because go ahead.
I know where you're going to go with this. I'm going to stop you for just a second.
Okay.
Because I know for a fact there are people that listen and watch this program that maybe that may need a little bit more explanation on why that matters. So for those of you that fit this crowd, by the way, if you're a subscriber to the show, thank you so much. If you are not and you are watching this on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. Man, I can't talk today.
See what I'm saying? I said I was uptight. I don't know. Maybe it's just my old age. I don't know what's going on here. I know there's one thing. There's a big fly in my studio right now, and I don't understand where it came from. They hibernate and wake up the first sign of 50 degrees.
Maybe it's electronic. It's just a spy device.
It could be an electric fly.
So back to the
electric fly.
If you're watching us on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so. It would mean the world to us. If you're checking out our podcast, if you're checking out our podcast, you've already found it. But if you are interested in checking out the podcast to get the full episode, go to our website, partscounterguru.com. There is a podcast tab at the top. Pretty much any platform that you currently use for podcasting, we are on. We are on all of them. Wherever fine podcasts are given away for free, just click on the link on our website and you'll find yours listed there. Now, this whole... Okay, so thermal efficiency. Okay, so some of the good people in the area where I live like to say, the hotter they fry, the faster they die. Right? That's kind of a thing you hear. Yeah, not usually. And there's a little dialect that goes along with that. Okay, but the point is, heat is the enemy of engines, of internal combustion, of all engines. Even it doesn't matter what the power source is. Right? So the cooler that you can keep those things running, the less energy that engine has to expel itself to cool that engine back down.
Right. And thermal efficiency applies to a number of working components out there. I mean, it's not just to an engine, but an engine, it's very important to the environment, and we're going to get to that, and that's where Keith's going with this.
Okay, so just by the very nature of how that engine works, you're exploding gas. You're going to have heat as a byproduct. It's how you manage that explosion and how much of a leak you have on that heat that really dictates the next steps in engine design, right? So, okay, Nissan says, hey, we got an engine that's 50% thermal efficiency. Like you said, Jay, that helps prolong the life of the engine. Mm-hmm. This isn't the first time it's been done, but
no.
Why this matters is it looks like the version that they're working on is more of a consumer model engine that can be mass produced in vehicles.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting how they plan to use that. And then let's go back. Toyota is already producing one, and they're using them in various current models. I think it's like a 40% or 41%.
I got it right here, and this is that's perfect to put this in perspective. Okay, the most efficient right now that's mass produced, and Jay mentioned this, it's Toyota. Now, look, Formula One's got in some of their cars, but an F1 car is $1 million. So no, you're not. Yeah, right. So yes, the technology is available on a race level, but we're talking consumer here. Toyota's got a 2-liter naturally aspirated. Oh boy, here we go. A 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine. It's 41% thermal efficiency. So in other words,
right.
41% of that engine is producing power. The other 59% is just blowing out heat.
Right. Useless heat.
Yep. It's almost a 60% just nothing but heat production. Okay?
Right. And what that also is doing is it's wearing and tearing on mating components.
Yep.
And the technology that goes into these, like, for example, a lot of your newer engines, Chuck Lynch over at AERA speaks to this quite a bit about coatings on cylinder walls. And those sorts of things help with the reduction of the thermal wear that's going on in there. Because friction wear is a huge problem in an internal combustion engine. So the more you can harness and not let get away, the better and more efficient that engine becomes in operation, and therefore, at the end of the day, the environment really reaps the benefit.
Well, and
the consumer,
Toyota,
your pocketbook as well.
It is the best case scenario right now that we really have on a large scale. If this Nissan surpasses that, 50%, I mean, so now everybody, you sort of get why this is a big deal, because like we just said, the internal combustion engine is probably not as dead as the EV manufacturers would lead you to believe that it is.
Right.
And with breakthroughs like this, you're becoming more competitive for the big picture, for the things that all the regulatory agencies are going to mandate, right? Like your carbon off, whatever the emissions are, all that stuff. So,
right. If you remember, Keith, back a few podcasts ago, we talked about, you specifically asked me a question. You asked me if I thought that by the year 2040 that we would be completely electric, and I said, no, we won't be. And here's why. And this is a great example of that, is that while we are dealing with the technology in front of us now, that's a bold statement to say that we're going to be all EV by then, but the technology changes so much and so fast that then you have things like this that pop up that go, oh, wait a minute, well, maybe we don't have to be all electric.
Right.
Maybe we can be using synthetic fuels like what Porsche is in the process of developing. Toyota's developing a thermal efficient engine. Now Nissan has stepped up to the plate, and they're a 50% thermal efficient engine. And it is my understanding that this engine, they're working on it now, so it will be used in a future generation of Nissan's E-POWER system. And we're going to get into why this is kind of interesting. Nissan was able to achieve the 50% thermal efficiency in testing by essentially tuning the engine to operate within a very specific range of speed and load. Because the engine doesn't drive the wheels, it doesn't have to work with such wide parameters. Now, that's something that we haven't spoken of yet up in this particular subject matters, which is how Nissan intends on using this engine and why that's important. Well, take it away, Keith.
It could go back to that whole Jeep thing that we started with, right?
Right.
Like maybe they've got some kind of capacitor as an intermediary situation where, the engine itself, the internal combustion engine, is creating enough of a current, like a generator, right, that it's stored up in a capacitor, and that capacitor can deliver it to electric, something, right? Engines, wheels, whatever, right? So potentially how is that different, right? Well, today in your gasoline powered engine, if you stomp on the gas pedal, you increase the explosion, the rate of combustion that's happening, and those cylinders are firing, right? Faster.
To RPMs go up, the parts are moving faster.
It's going to get hotter, right?
Yep.
But if you use something like a capacitor or something where that engine can kind of run the way it wants to run all the time, it doesn't have to stress.
There's a lot less dynamics going on with that, and it's a more controlled environment as well. Because that's why we have so many computers, onboard computers now.
Yep.
On vehicles, is specifically it learns the habits of each driver typically. As a matter of fact, some of the smarter cars out there, like for instance, we talked about my Mini, BMW products, and your higher end vehicles, they'll have a couple of different key fobs, right?
Yep.
And the key fob will have, seat settings and radio settings, all the creature comfort stuff. But what a lot of people don't realize, it knows it's you getting in. Therefore, that computer, that system, the onboard system knows what to expect. Therefore, it's going to run at its most efficient rate that it can while you're driving it. And then I get in, I'm lead foot, and it's different, so it's going to compensate for my driving habits. Those are the types of dynamics that this particular engine won't be subjected to, because its purpose is for something else that we'll talk about here. And that's what kind of gives it that ability. It's smart. It's a smart use of internal combustion engine, really, in my opinion. It's like a stationary engine, like hospitals run these big, huge power gen setups. Those things are not stop and go traffic. You're not. Those things are not occurring.
Uninterruptible power supply, consistent power.
And they're running pyrometers, which measure the exhaust gas temperatures.
And they have
which is sending
generators on the back end. If there's a reduction in current, whatever, they kick the generators up 3-4 seconds later to supplement that. And all the while, your output, right, that you're talking about is consistent. Right. So I want to, real quick, I'm gonna just dip my toe into this pool of controversy for a second. So Nissan says that they're aiming for 100% carbon neutrality by 2050. Now that's 10 years later than GM's targeting. I want to go back to something that we have talked about many times on this show, because I don't think we're not done talking about it. And what we've seen in the United States is not. It's not going to stop. It's going to continue to trend. We saw it in the UK as well. And that is, California was the first state here where, remember, Gavin Newsom came out and said, no more sale of new gasoline engine vehicles by, what was it, 2035. Okay.
2035, yeah.
I feel like, and here comes the controversy part, okay? I feel like that was a bad move. But let me explain before you guys get all, defensive with me. By the way, we welcome your letters, partscounterguru.com. Click on the Ask Us a Question tab. We'd love to hear from you. Or leave a comment in the YouTube section here. We read those. So I feel like it would have been a better move to start with the objective in mind. What is the objective? Is the objective a cleaner environment? Okay. Then let's establish metrics that we can use to get there.
Right.
Telling everyone that you can't sell internal combustion engines by 2035, first of all, gives electric vehicle battery-powered cars an unfair advantage. And second, it doesn't take into account the things that we've discussed in the last two segments. Porsche working on an e-fuel that reduces their carbon emissions by 85%. This engine that Nissan's working on right here that reduces thermal output, which ties into emissions. All this stuff is internal combustion engine based. Yeah. You coming out here and going, hey, everybody, we're killing off gasoline engine. Well, that's some lobbyist that just got their hands on you and told you one side of the story, but it's not objective. Go to the manufacturers. Let the creative minds do this and go, hey, auto industry, I need to see your plan, and we need to know what you're going to do to reduce, again, whatever your goal is. Like, is it emissions? Is it, and I need to see it incrementally happen over the next 30 years. What's your plan?
Right.
Okay, ready? Go. And then everybody submits, right?
Yeah.
And you take it from there.
And if you look at the history, of the internal combustion engine over the last, I'm going to say 50 years, okay? I'm going to go back that far because I think that's really where it applies. It's probably when the movement began of, a greener planet, I would say, probably 50 years ago. The 70s, when you say late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, catalytic converters kind of.
Right, the generation of, being aware of the environment.
The switch from leaded gasoline to unleaded gasoline.
Right, and
that all happened in that time frame.
Take a look at the technology advancements. And again, I bring this to the attention of everyone because we've said it before on the exponential growth of technology. That is why, again, I say I still think the internal combustion engine is going to be around in 2040.
Well,
but it may not be as we know it now. And that's important to put out there. So don't make the internal combustion engine the bad guy here because it's really not. We just have to learn how to make it a better component as consumers to get us through, around. I mean, we use the internal combustion engine for just about everything, man.
We as Americans, we love to argue. It's like you just don't. It doesn't even matter, Coke, Pepsi, right? Like we'll pick anything to argue about, And
yeah,
it seems to me that if we would stop picking topics to argue and start discussing objectives and solutions, right? And many times we all want the same or similar things. We just have different ideas on how to get there.
I took, and I bet you that the majority of the people, when the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, came out and said, we will be 100%, there will be no more internal combustion engines sold in the state of California by 2035. I guarantee you the first thing that popped into everybody's mind, they're going to take away my car, they're going to tax us to death, because that's the first thing, because somebody's got to pay for that.
So
he didn't give you, that's a big, huge gray area,
plan,
man.
Right? Yeah.
Right. He didn't give you any information on what to expect from that.
And we are learning, and we continue to learn. And Jay, I hope I'm wrong on this, but I feel like a few years from now, we're going to start seeing waste issues with these first and second generation EVs with all their batteries that are expensive to replace, and that's toxic chemicals in those batteries when you have to dispose of them. What are you going to do with that stuff, right? So I feel like it's a very short-sighted move. We haven't even started to talk about how the load on the power grid when everybody drives in California that already has power grid issues when they all start plugging in their cars. So we've got some things to solve. Now, I am not saying, you guys, please, before you object, I am not saying we can't do better. We shouldn't try to do better. We shouldn't have some concern over waste, pollution, emissions, and all that. I'm just saying, let's figure out the objectives first, and then let's talk about ideas on how to get there. How did we end up in this hole? I don't even know. We were talking about Nissan and their thermally efficient engine.
Yeah, I mean, but it all ties into, this is how important the automotive industry is to our environment. And you can see that manufacturers are diligently working towards that neutrality. They want it to happen. I think we just all need to be a little bit more patient, and have a little bit more understanding of what drives that and the technology that goes into that. And, just to give you an idea, so as far as an engine like what Nissan is intending on producing, a 50% thermal efficient engine, there's only one right now, and that is the Mercedes-AMG 1.6 liter. It's a Formula One V6 that's out there. Again, racing technology.
Pocket change, Jay. Pocket change. Those F1 cars are only like a couple, what are they, $1.5 million, whatever?
Right. And if you want to, you can go to Boddington in England. We did a podcast about it. You can go get yourself a ride in a Formula One right now over in Boddington, England.
That technology will trickle down from Mercedes into their luxury line in their consumer vehicles. It's just a matter of time. Time is a big factor. You brought this up. And something else nobody's taken into account here is this pandemic that we've been in the middle of now for right at about a year is affecting R&D. It's affecting development
tremendously.
There's a huge, we've talked about this before, we're about to talk about it again. There are supply chain issues. This
there are.
Really stretches what you can do as an automotive manufacturer when you're trying to make sure you have enough parts available to fix the cars that are already out there on the road.
Right. It's you know, again, the automotive industry, period, has such a huge impact on global economy. This is why these things are such a big deal.
Historically speaking, okay, can't predict the future. I don't have a crystal ball. And if I did, I'd probably go to our website, partscounterguru.com, click on the Amazon link and buy one. But I digress. Historically speaking, as the automotive industry goes in the United States, so goes the economy. That is why they are always looking at quarterly car sales from the major manufacturers, because if they see a decline across the board, like we saw last summer, where GM, all of them reported, trouble, we all got spooked. Checks started being issued from the government. Why do you think that is? Well, because the economy was starting to tank, and things picked back up a little bit, and that's great. But Jay, you're right. If the auto industry starts sucking wind, it's not a good sign for the rest of us.
That's right. I tell you, man, this is why we love talking about this stuff. It is relevant to just about every person that is. If you're in a vehicle, riding on a bus, this is important to you as a whole, but most importantly, it's important to our future generations. So again, our children are going to be the benefits of some of this technology coming out, and it's going to be a completely different animal, I think, by the time that I'm 80.